Um, as those of you know, we are doing this segment to go ahead and try to teach people about sometimes non-conventional careers in animal welfare. So thank you so much for tuning in. Those of you that were with us last time already know some of the rules, but just to reiterate for our new friends, I am asking that everybody puts themselves on mute and that all cameras are off. Um, we are bringing this program to you coming from the Pasadena Humane Society, and this is going to be a 4-part series. We have 2 more, so if you guys are interested in learning about other careers in animal welfare, you can go ahead and sign up for those via Eventbrite. With us today is the amazing Jackson Galaxy. He is a cat behaviorist and wellness expert, and also a New York Times bestseller. How you doing today, Jackson?
I'm doing lovely. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Yeah, no problem. And we are crazy jazzed to have you. So thank you so much for making the time.
Crazy jazz. Cool. Oh, I'm crazy. I'm really, honestly, any chance I have to talk to people, especially young people, about um, animal welfare is a good day. It really is.
Definitely. And honestly, I feel like so many people have questions about how do I become the next Jackson Galaxy? So this is amazing. But just to kind of sum it up for some of our viewers, what exactly does your title mean for you and how do you do it?
Well, I mean, my title, which has been very fluid over the years, I always felt very hesitant to call myself a behaviorist because I always felt like it was a strange word, and I still do, actually. I don't think it encompasses what it is that we do.
Mhm.
So that's why I always added in behavior and wellness person. Over the years, I've been called a cat family therapist and cat translator and cat diplomat and whatever I could come up with that didn't put it in a box. But when I first started, the box was necessary because nobody knew what it was that I did, or how we could possibly have cats do what we want them to do and not do what we don't want them to do. So when it comes to the how do I do it, that's less sort of concrete. I mean, I a lot of what I do is just observation through all the years of both hands-on learning and book learning and asking people and just spending a lot of time with a lot of cats. And now I'm able to identify warning signs before the behavior actually happens. And I think most importantly, I think the thing that folks don't really or might not really get is that the work is half cat, half human. I mean, you spend a lot of time trying to teach human family members why their cats are doing something and how it's more of a cry for help than it is, kind of telling the family that you hate them or something like that. So I think that is an important thing that I've learned over the years. And for me, it's all about being as close as I can to hands-on all the time. Obviously, at this moment in our lives, that's not all that possible, but I do what I can. Yeah.
Yeah, by all means. How old were you actually when you got started in the whole animal welfare world?
Let's see. I started. I took a job at the Humane Society of Boulder Valley in Boulder, Colorado, and that was in, I believe it was '93. So I don't know how old that made me. Let's see. That probably made me about God. I don't know. I'm 53 now, so whatever that means. Math has never been my strong suit,
Like in your
but you know, young and stupid, but old and stupid at the same time. That's where I was. I did not expect what happened, and I think that that's really the number, like one of the number one things for anyone considering a career or even an entrance into animal welfare, is that it's really just about keeping your antennas up and being present with the animals and the humans that are around you, and things start coming to you. You're sort of special gift to that organization and those animals comes. And that's exactly what happened to me. I had no intent of being the cat guy of Boulder Valley, but that's what happened.
And with Boulder Valley, were you just like volunteering with their organization, or was it an actual job that you applied for?
No, I needed a job bad at that time, man. I was a working musician and most of the time a non-working musician, and I just needed a job, and I was tired of working bad jobs, and I figured if there was an opportunity where my paycheck came from something that would make a difference somehow, then that sounded good to me. And as soon as I saw that job opening, I knew that that was the one for me.
Okay, and what was it that was that first job opening?
It was just a general animal welfare associate. It was scoop and poop, walking dogs, changing cages, assisting everything from uh, I went out on animal control calls. I assisted in the spay neuter clinic. I worked at the front desk. I worked in the back. I was an adoption counselor. And honestly, the amazing thing was just by being available and excited and showing a certain degree of initiative, I wound up in the 10 years that I worked at Boulder Valley, I pretty much worked every job in the place besides either executive director or, director of operations. Other than that, I did everything. And that really just shaped my perception of the world and of my place in it.
That is so amazing. And I feel like that's kind of the best way when we fall into these things where you don't really expect it, but then they become these really big and fulfilling portions of our lives. So that's amazing that you found this so early.
Yeah. And I would say that it's interesting. We just did a cat camp, virtual cat camp, just a few weeks ago, and all of the guys that we call our cat camp counselors, me and Hannah Shaw, the kitten lady, was one of our counselors, and we had 6 or 7 others. And as we were comparing notes that day, it became very obvious that not a single one of us meant to do what we did. It was just that we kept our eyes open. We were present in our world. And suddenly there were certain pockets of that world that we felt that, number one, we could make a difference in, and nobody else was doing it. And once you fill that pocket, um, it really, as long as you're available to the change, um, it takes you to amazing places.
That is so great. With that actually, and keeping your eyes open, were there any mentors very early on, or was there anybody that helped you kind of shape what your career turned into?
The first person that comes to my mind, and listen, my bosses there were incredibly understanding and forgiving. They allowed me to be who I was, which at that point was like, you know, a rock and roll guitarist with like dreadlocks down, you know, wherever, and like every one of them was a different color. I looked like a total freak at that point, but they didn't care as long as I got the job done. But there was one person, she was the director of community outreach at the time, which I took her job after she left. And she taught me that not the basics of cat, because honestly, back then there really wasn't much. There really wasn't much in terms of other behavior experts or books or um, methodology or anything like that. So from that perspective, I just took as many books as I could about the life of cats and their biology and their evolution. That's where I started. And then I spent time with them. But this woman, her name was Sunny, she taught me the basics of what we were, that we were stewards, that we weren't just people who opened and closed cages and scooped poop. We were stewards. And I think that word stewardship was a big one. She had the word over her desk. And the other thing she taught me was the word guardian, which to this day I use. I never use the word pet owner. And that was my entrance into sort of the ethical base of animal welfare, where it was such a mind-blowing thing. And that's the thing, when you're open and you're interested and you're hungry, that when little things come your way, just it changes everything. So when she said to me, when she explained the concept of guardianship to me, and how using the word owner and using the word it instead of he or she, or things like that, those contribute to this culture of disposable animals, because we don't think of them, just using words like that, we just don't think of them as anything but things that we can get rid of when they don't serve us anymore. And our job as stewards was also to educate about the concept of animals as family members. And if we wanted to stop killing animals, that was the way we were going to do it. And it was mind shaking to me. And I've never forgotten that. It's been 25, 7, I don't know, years. And I can still relate that to you as clearly as the day she said it to me, because to this moment in my life, with however many hundreds of thousands of animals that I've experienced over the years and people, it still is a guiding principle to me. So yeah, mentorship is a massive thing.
Yeah, and I mean, from the sounds of it, she was an amazing resource to you, especially when it came to shaping your philosophy. Were there
Mm-hmm.
any other resources that came into play when you actually started the gears moving, when you started working in the cat world, or even as far as like putting on these talks and things like that?
Well, the thing, and again, I feel lucky that at the shelter I work in, Pasadena has a track record just like this, where my boss didn't have to encourage me. She just had to not discourage me. So when I came to her with this idea where I said, listen, we are taking in way too many cats. And obviously that leads to having to kill all these cats. So what if when people called us, they instead of and they say to us, hey, listen, I've got a cat, he's peeing on stuff, and you know what, I'm bringing him into you guys, how much does it cost? And instead of allowing that person to do that, what about if I say, listen, how about if I come to your house and see if there's anything I can solve there, and would you still keep the cat? And she would say yes. And I said, okay, great. So I went to my boss and I said, do you mind if I do that? And she just was like, yeah, go for it. That's great. If it means that the salary I pay you means another cat's not going to come in here, go do it. That again changed my life, changed, right? The job that any of you guys have seen me do on TV, that's the exact same job I did that day in Boulder. And I think that the door is still as wide open in animal welfare as it was back then. That the potential for people who love animals to achieve whatever level of I don't know, impact that they want to achieve is available, and so yeah, but really, I relied a lot on, and I'm not a great. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not a great student. I'm not a great reader, but the stakes were high, so I read everything. I devoured everything I could get my hands on, and but I learned a lot from the people around me. I mean, honestly, the staff and the volunteers around me. There were a lot of volunteers at Boulder at that point, and this is true, I think, in most shelters, sort of long timer volunteers who knew a hell of a lot more than I did, and were able to shine a light on what cats in shelters need. That's a whole different thing. The stress that cats go through in any sort of institutionalized environment, whether they're in cages or not, they're not in a home. And so what do they need? And how do we make them more adoptable? And how do we get them out of here faster? How do we reduce the time that they're here? How do we market seniors and special needs cats? It was a time of incredible discovery. you know, and I'm really grateful for it.
You actually mentioned books a little bit earlier. Are there any that you would recommend some of our younger audience to start reading to kind of get their feet wet in animal
Yeah, I'm
welfare?
trying to see if are they here or are they in my studio? Yeah, they're in my studio. But one of the most important books in my life was one that was called The Natural Cat, and it was called The New Natural Cat because it was an updated version. The New Natural Cat, which I believe is now in its third revision, was my Bible. It because it was also written by somebody who was like me. You know, she didn't have letters after her name, and she was just her arc was the way I envisioned my arc going. And but what she had to offer in terms of not just behavior, so to speak, but also biology, nutrition, evolution. What makes the cat from 10,000 years ago the cat that's sitting in your lap, and what does that cat need? The thing that we call the cat I love you, the slow blink, that was something that she was the first to write about. I just picked it up and popularized it, um, but yeah, you know, that New Natural Cat um, was my number one book. Um, there's about six others, but that's the one that really sticks with me to this day.
Okay, so you guys heard it, The New Natural Cat. Maybe you guys want to go ahead and check it out. With that, have you created any foundations or organizations that younger audiences can go ahead and get involved in to test out animal welfare and really see what its impact is?
Yeah. Well, what I run now is called the Jackson Galaxy Project, which is a signature program of Greater Good Charities. And we work in shelters nationwide, and we have a bunch of different programs. I think the most popular of them is called Cat Positive, which is a clicker training initiative. And it's mostly volunteer run. And we now have a presence in over 100 shelters. I thought Pasadena was one of them.
Yep, we are.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Pasadena, all of a sudden it just struck me. Yeah, Pasadena is a cat positive. So you guys know what we're all about. And we also have a program that is just about to unfurl called Operation Cadification, which is an environmental enrichment program. We'll be going into community cats soon. And we're also, we have a transport program. So we have a bunch of things that we're trying to sort of encompass the entire 360 of cat life in animal welfare. So it does, but as you know, I mean, cat positive is something that anybody at any age can do. And I think learning clicker training is so valuable if you want to work with animals, period. Whether they're cats, dogs, ferrets, chickens, it doesn't matter. You know, that they all, and humans, by the way, all respond to positive reinforcement and operant conditioning. So and honestly, I'm going to tell you a quick story. So one of the times when I started working with clicker training back in Boulder, and I learned it from a dog trainer because there were no cat trainers at that point, and she was teaching me how to just get a cat to do something with food motivation. And my job at that point was to get cats to present themselves in a cage when they were scared and shut down, because those scared and shut down cats were unadoptable and they would get euthanized. So I would have a very short window of time to get a cat to do something. And that something, it turns out, was turning their feature to the front of the cage, coming to the front of the cage, doing a high five, and then putting that high five out of the cage. And that was an instant success because people would walk into the adoption room and you had one cat raising their hand, you know, and people were like, oh my God, the cat loves me, you know? So that technique, hey man, you do what you got to do, right? That technique became the big high five thing that we do in cat positive. And so again, something that very early on, given the latitude for my imagination and my empathy to matter in the facility I was working in, led 20 some odd years later to us working with really thousands of cats at this point and getting them into forever homes quicker. So there's, not to paint everything that happened in the early days of working in a shelter with a big glorious paintbrush, but put it this way. I mean, I knew nothing but um, writing songs, performing for humans, and writing stories and whatever. That's all I knew, and I made the choice to change the arc of my life based on the unbelievable impact that cats had on my life at that point.
And I feel like that says a lot about kind of the majority of people who go into animal welfare. We
Yeah.
don't necessarily initially plan it, but then we have these experiences and it's changing. You start seeing where those gaps are, where just anybody really needs to step up, and you decide, well, that's where I'm gonna do it then. And
Mm-hmm.
in speaking to these people in animal welfare, we are seeing that trend where people just decided, why not me? Um, and I feel like that's huge, especially for people just getting started in this career field, or even just wanting to volunteer and help out. Where if you see a cause and just actually stepping up to it, that's kind of step number one, even in anything, right?
I mean, I think it's also, listen, for anything, even if you think you know what you're doing, if you approach a new situation with passion on one side and humility on the other, you're going to be okay, because you have to know that you know nothing. It's okay to know nothing. And if you just have the compassionate side where you just want to make these animals' lives better, and you're open to everything that surrounds the life of that one animal, and how you might be able to fit in, you will. I've never seen, that just from that one sort of group of people that worked in my shelter, all of us have gone far in animal shelter, in animal sheltering and animal welfare. All of us, this big group of people, because it was just a fertile ground for learning and for the acceptance of our particular talents, and we all did something. And I think that one of the most beautiful things about whether you're just going to be volunteering or whether you're considering an actual career in animal welfare, and I know you guys can attest to this, everything you do saves lives. Everything, everything, every cage you go into, every dog that you spend 5 minutes with, every class you attend, every animal you advocate for, you're saving a life. And it's it's amazing. It's an amazing way to spend your life. Sometimes very frustrating, and sometimes devastating, because you are putting your own heart on the line and your own talents on the line for the lives of these animals. And we're not there yet, which is why we need you guys, which is why we need everybody, all hands on deck, because um, we want to get to that place where every animal who wants a home gets one. But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, and I mean, you're so incredibly right when it comes to, excuse me, when it comes to just these small changes and involvements, because even in our own shelter we've seen expanding kennel sizes have made a huge difference, not only in our cats but in our dogs as well. Volunteer interactions, animals that we had come in that were extremely stressed, were a little on the under socialized side, have made great strides just by having a volunteer go in there and work at their own pace and just actually take that time. So
Right.
even our teen volunteers, our adult volunteers, some of them have gone on to actually turn it into careers with us because they've taken these steps and they've seen like this is a great way to spend your life if it's something that you really really want.
Mm-hmm.
But you are 100% correct about it taking an emotional toll sometimes. We're actually doing different work to try to help our employees with compassion fatigue. What is something that you've done to try to go ahead and combat that?
Well, I think the number one thing I tell everybody who's been doing this for a long time, or even if they haven't been, and they start to experience the effects of compassion fatigue, is dig deep and figure out where's the next level for you. Not everybody can handle being in the trenches for extended periods of time. But what's important for you to know is that whatever it is that your contribution, what your heart and your experience and your life up to that point can bring to this struggle, to this cause, what is it? Because you want to level up a little bit. You want to get yourself up out of whatever moment that you're in that's got you hit this emotional brick wall. So for me, that's why I changed jobs so many times within the shelter. There's only so many years I could have put into being that sort of, you know, boots on the ground shelter worker. It's hard, man. It's hard. Same thing goes with people who have volunteered. I mean, we're seeing a great influx in people who are volunteering to work TNR for cats. How many years can you trap cats without really starting to hit a brick wall? Okay, so you hit that brick wall. Now, why don't you go out there and teach what you know to people like you guys? Get out there and teach. Get out there and level up a little bit, because there is honestly so many places for you to branch out to and to grow out of. For me, after 10 years at the shelter and having worked every job in sight, then I was like, okay, I think I can do what I do as a living. So let's get out there and do that. But I still relied on the shelter to send me clients. So it was total win-win. If I worked with a cat and a family and it worked out, that cat still doesn't come to the shelter. If I come into the shelter and I teach a class on Cat 101, those adopters are not going to be just as quick to return the cats if they're having problems. And then I was able to make a life for myself outside the shelter. And now I can go back to the shelters as I always do, and with fresh eyes and fresh heart go back in there and try to help people like you guys.
And do your thing.
A thing.
No, that's so great because I think that's something that for those of you who've just gotten started or haven't necessarily really like delve into it, compassion fatigue is a real thing. And sometimes we do need to take a step back and just see all the good that we do, but also realize we can do more good if we take care of ourselves as well. Because in order for us to make a change, we have to be here, right?
I mean, I think the biggest poison in animal welfare world is getting to a place where you just start feeling cynical and you just start not liking people. And if you start even approaching that place, you got to back away a little bit. You got to find a little space to breathe, because what I can tell you after being in and around animal welfare for almost 3 decades is that there is more good than there is bad. There is more light than there is dark. Otherwise, there's no way I could have made it this far. Sometimes you hear really horrible stories about what people are capable of doing to and with animals, but it is equaled out and it is lapped by the extraordinary lengths that people will go to save them and to better their lives. That's for sure.
And with a lot of these people, sometimes we have people that when we ask them like, oh, well, why do you want to get started in animal welfare, they sometimes have that conversation where like, well, I like animals more than people, which I feel like most people tend to like animals a little bit more. They're cuddly, they're fun.
They don't talk back. They don't make excuses.
Very fond of talking back.
Yeah. Never heard an animal be like, yeah, but yeah. You know, I've never seen an animal do that before. They either will or they won't, you know, but there's hardly ever like excuse making, you know. So that's nice. But I know kind of where you're going, and that is that that's not a place, that's not the place to go, you know, because let's face it, we need people. We need people a lot. We need people to adopt animals and foster animals. We need more volunteers. We need to be able to relate to humans as well as we feel like we can relate to animals. Otherwise, you know, and I know for a lot of people coming into animal welfare, they have that line, I like animals more than people. Okay, and that's great. And I'm sure we can work with that, but you know, gonna need to find a path into liking humans too, you know.
Or even just getting along with them. That's
Yeah, tolerating is fine, you know. It's like I say about cat roommates. It's like they don't have to sit around and give each other baths and whatever. Tolerating is what it comes down to. If we can tolerate each other, it's all uphill or downhill or golden or whatever from there.
yeah. I so in kind of this, we talked about your shelter life and your roots there. How exactly did you get started on TV?
You know, I was really just lucky. Really just sort of blessed. I mean, I came to Los Angeles for no other reason than I spent 15 years in the mountains, and I was like, I just want to be by the beach, to be honest, you know, and that's what I did. I moved to the beach, but of course, I brought my work with me. At that point, I was doing just my consulting work, and I also have a line of flower essence remedies that that I make and sell. And that was it. I brought that with me. And it was only about a month after, I mean, everybody in Los Angeles seems to be connected to show business in one way or the other. And I think somebody saw me teaching a class and they were like, oh my God, that crazy looking guy works with cats. I see a TV show. And all they ever had to do was, it was just a matter of meeting the right people. And within 6 months, we were filming, 7 months, we were filming a pilot. And it just went from there. So I was just very, very lucky.
And I feel like we're all so glad to have you as a resource. You've given amazing information out on your show, especially regarding positive reinforcement, enrichment. And those can sometimes be things that old school traditions kind of overlook. So it's great that we have these newer people coming out and actually exposing things like that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And honestly, I mean, I feel like I always wanted to be that resource that Anitra Fraser, who wrote Natural Cat, was for me. And that's why I write books, and that's why I make videos, and that's why I teach classes and go out and do live shows, because I just want that opportunity to be that for someone else. I mean, I think, and I'm not even being like rosy about this, the the highlight of my career is when especially kids come up to me and tell me that they want to do what I do. And that's it, you know. If the future is well spoken for in terms of people who love animals, then I'm good.
That is so heartwarming. Oh my God, I just had like a little moment. Um, So I have one more question for you, but before we do that, I wanted to let our viewers know if you have any questions, go ahead and start typing them into the chat box. We'll go ahead and pick out a couple to ask Jackson Galaxy. But before I give you over to them, if you could give one piece of advice to kids, people considering career changes, anyone who wants to get started in this field, what would be your piece of advice?
I mean, I would say, you know, as long as your love for animals is guiding you, you can't go wrong, you know? I mean, keep your North Star north. Animals need us. And I'm not just talking about, you know, I mean, I work with or I advocate for all animals, and as long as I keep that paramount in my mind, I can't go wrong. And then, like I said, be present. Um, you know, it's like the story that Hannah always tells me about kittens. It's the same thing for all of us. You know, that she was walking down the street one day, literally walking down the street, and there was a kitten in a tree. And she took the kitten from the tree, and suddenly she was working with kittens. One of my best friends, Christina Ha, who is my partner in cat camp and the founder of Meow Parlor in New York, one of the first cat cafes in New York City, or in the world, actually. I mean, well, in the US, said that she was walking down the street and there was a cat in front of her. And she had never had a cat before. And within 3 months, she was starting a nonprofit, starting a cat cafe, learning the ins and outs of the New York City sheltering system, which is no mean feat. But it was just that balance of passion, ingenuity, you know, and empathy. Those three things. Because innovation counts, you guys. You say, what if, you spend your time learning, you learn the ropes, you learn the rules before you can break them. And then there comes a day where you're like, well, what if we did this? And as long as there's somebody there to hear you and to encourage you, which I know there is at Pasadena, then you will move forward and you will make a difference in animal lives in even a bigger way. And so, yeah, it's a matter of willingness, passion, humility, and an innovative mind. You'll get exactly where you want to get.
And I think that's incredibly important, because I feel like if you have the drive, you have the want, the means are out there. So by all means.
Absolutely.
And we do have a pretty well-rounded volunteer group, but we're always looking for more. The need is always there, as you know. So those of you that are interested, please definitely check out our website. Even if you can't physically come into the shelter, there are a number of things that you can create as formal donations. We always need clean linens and towels and things like that. So by all means, if you want to get involved. But let's take a look at some of these questions. Do. And I do have one person asking, in your time working in the shelter, how did you combat compassion fatigue when it came to euthanasia? Yeah, that kind of got deep.
I mean, listen, here's what I could tell you is that if you are, like we had to in Boulder, everybody had to perform euthanasia. It wasn't something that we were going to leave to, a certain tech. I mean, it was just too much. So we had to, unfortunately, everybody had to do it. And and to be that person who is advocating for the life of that cat until the moment when you have to help them move on, yeah, it changes you. But what you then do is say, okay, well, how can I personally help move the train on the tracks here and get us further down the line so that somebody after me doesn't have to do this or do it as much as I have to. And let's look at it this way, you guys. This is what battles compassion fatigue for me. In 1993, when I started, we were killing between 10 and 12 million cats and dogs every year. We are down under 1 million now, and it's 2020. And the sort of tipping point of human empathy towards companion animals has absolutely happened. The numbers are plummeting every year, not plummeting, but they're going down pretty significantly every year. So that whatever it is that you put into it, we are going to get out of it. That's how you do it. And just to know yourself well enough to know that if you're hitting that wall, get away from it. Get away from the wall, because we have lost, and I know that you can validate this. We have lost our best and brightest in many generations of animal welfare because they didn't see the wall coming, and then they just left. Just remember, we need you, and if you're approaching a wall, then walk away from the wall and figure out something else to get over it.
Yeah, and those of you looking into into this as a career field, by all means, take your breaks when you need them, because the work will always be there by no uncertain means. We do have somebody else asking, in your experience, what's some of the strangest behavior you've seen out of cats?
You know what? Every day I think I've seen everything, and then I see something else. I mean, God, I can't even think of one specific thing that made me go, oh, well, this is, but it happened today. As a matter of fact, I was working with a client remotely, and she sent me a video of her cat eating litter, which in itself is not that weird, except they've never done it in their lives. And it's a natural litter. So it's wheat or it's corn or it's whatever. So, okay, I get, but he was actually eating it off his own pea clump, which, yeah, I was like, okay, well, and I said this, I emailed her, I said, you know what? I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen that one before. And, gave some reasons why it could be happening. And sometimes you are just, like I said before, you're throwing the spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's what you have to do. But I'll say this, I see enough. And you guys, anybody who has seen my show has seen it happen time and time again. We did over 100 of those episodes. There's always going to come a moment where I'm like, damn, I don't know what that is. Let's find out together, And I think the good thing is we're seeing less and less of that crazy behavior. The more acceptable it becomes in terms of psych meds for cats, the more that becomes sort of an acceptable thing, because back then it wasn't. We're seeing less and less of that just sort of off the wall bonkers stuff, but like I said, man, I've seen a lot.
And I feel like anybody who's ever worked in a shelter has also seen some just really random behavior. But yeah, it's always about remembering cats are one way in a shelter or in an unfamiliar situation, but let
Sure.
them settle and adapt, and most times they're a lot calmer. Another question that we have is, in your career time, what is the approximate number of cats that you've worked with?
Well, I mean, uh, from a one-on-one perspective, I don't know. I mean, in terms of going to people's homes and working with their cats, that's one number. In terms of working with shelter cats, it's another. I, I would have to think in terms of the cats that I have individually touched, uh, probably in the neighborhood of 50, 60,000, probably, and then it gets a little bigger when I go and I talk to shelter staff. So we're dealing with, walking around and just little piece of advice or I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of animals. But it's been a long time, it's been a lot of years.
Alrighty. And then we actually also have a good number of people asking, what would the steps be to introduce two unfamiliar cats into your home?
Oh, I have videos on that, you guys. Go to my YouTube channel, you'll figure it out. Buy the book, you'll figure it out. I mean, I devote a lot of space to that. There's a process that I recommend in terms of introducing two cats to one another, and it's pretty well laid out. Mostly, that's why I put it in my new book, you guys, because I have a copy of the book somewhere. Yeah, there it is. This book, there's an entire chapter on cat to cat intros. And there's cat to dog intros, cat to child intros. I think the one thing I can't tell you not to do is there was this sort of old wisdom that was like, just put them together and they'll work it out. No, don't do that. They might work it out and somebody might lose an eye, so I would say don't do that. But yeah, it's slow motion, introducing through scent before sight, and always using everything at your disposal that is a positive association. And usually that comes down to food, right? And treats and toys and things like that, and bring it to bear on the introduction itself. So the cats then associate one another with good things, as opposed to, stealing my territory or whatever, so yeah.
And in that note, I want to go ahead and thank you so much for doing this. I understand that you're pretty busy, so it's amazing that you came on here and you're giving all this great information to people wanting to get started on this, especially a demographic that most people don't really tackle that much. So thank you so much.
Hey man, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you guys for what you do, and anybody out there who is even sort of on the fence about a career in animal welfare. Number one, don't think twice, man. Start volunteering if you're not sure about it. Apply for that job. You got nothing to lose, and animals have everything to gain from your presence. So yeah, thank you guys for having me here.
By all means, before I go ahead and say goodbye to everybody and we log off, I'd like everybody to turn on their cameras and then we can take a group snapshot together to go ahead and post. That would be great. So if I can have everybody go ahead and turn on their cameras for me. And I'm loving how many familiar faces I'm seeing. A lot of these kids I've seen in my programs before. So thank you guys for coming back.
Yeah, let me see everybody, man. I can do the gallery view. What's up, everybody? I didn't even realize that we had all these faces. Rock and roll. This is great, man.
We
Good to see
actually
you guys.
had a little over 200 people sign up to see you today and hear you speak. So it's
Right on.
already, guys.
Oh, I'm seeing Linnea's cat. Linnea cat.
This is great. Alrighty, guys. So in 3, 2, 1, cheese. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jackson, for being here. And I hope you guys have a great weekend.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem.
Bye. Thank you.
Here.
Good job, Azizi.